Welcome. Thanks for joining me again if you're tuning into another one of my videos. This one today I wanted to make, since we're pretty much in the beginning here still, I guess I thought I'd make a video about what's really going on, so you start to awaken and start to go through your enlightening process, and well, what's the big thing of it? Well, the big thing of it is what are you awakening to? What's the truth? What is really going on, And you think about it, you've probably been asking yourself a lot of these questions like your whole life, like what's the point of it? What is my purpose here? What am I doing here? Depending on the type of person you are, you may have been thinking, why do I seem like I'm the only person paying attention, or the only person who cares, or, you know, how can religions be the way they are, and which one's right, and how can government be ran the way it is, and society in general, and people, and why do bad things happen to good people? Like there's so many questions that we all have throughout our life, and we try to figure out, uh, physically here on our own, and also spiritually, so really that all of the answers to all of those questions is truly what all of this esoteric knowledge and the enlightening, the awakening, ascending process. This is what it all is. It's bringing these answers to you finally, so that you can really figure out yourself first and foremost, and also the world, the galaxy, the everything. How everything works, and then even after that comes the next question. Now, once you gain all of this, is what will you do with it? So, but for this video, uh, let's just stay on topic of what's really going on. So, uh, there'll have to obviously be other videos that actually break into and break down all the other aspects and things that I'm about to touch on. But just for, like a wrap-up purposes of a short video, what's really going on and what really the truth is that everything is, but it isn't. That's one of the big teachings, and I'll make a whole video about that. But that's what's going on. Is everything is, but it isn't. And all it is a matter of perspective. Uh, Nothing is good or bad. Nothing is good and evil. Things like that. It's all just a matter of where you see it from. And how long does it take for the good to come out of something bad to happen? You see, that's like part of the way of it is, for good to be an actual thing, for it to exist, the opposite end of it has to also exist. The bad must exist somewhere, somehow, too. Otherwise, what would good be? It would be nothing. It couldn't be a concept without the opposite end of it, And that's the whole duality thing, so that'll have a video too. But basically, this is the truth that you're awakening to, is that everything is, but it isn't. And it's all just a matter of perspective. And, that's how you can master things like mental transmutation, where you don't allow things to affect you, or if they do, you immediately change them through conscious thought of what's going on and what it'll do to you, so therefore you change what you do about it, right? That's a whole nother video as well. And so, in that, there's a lot of big perspectives and ways that we've, been taught to view things, which, all that stuff makes up our belief systems. And, it really turns out that what you truly believe is really how you create your reality. You see, because that's also part of the truth here, is that we are creators. You know, we do create our reality, whether it turn out to be positive, negative, you know, up, down, left, or right, whatever. It really doesn't matter. You know, our thoughts, which then generate our feelings and emotions, which then generate the ways that we act and the things that we do, uh, slash don't do, you know, when typically maybe we would, right? Those things then turn into our manifestations and grow into our realities and our experiences that we have. You know, and Source doesn't care. Like, it wants to and needs to experience it all. So, whatever you consciously or subconsciously draw to yourself to be your reality to experience, it'll give you. You know, it really doesn't care whether it's a considered a good or a bad thing to you, a positive or negative thing to you. It really doesn't care. It feels like you called for this, and so here, now I'm gonna give it to you. You can experience it, and then, you know, really, it wants back to know what you experienced. How did it feel? What was it? You know, what did you think about that? Given the opportunity, would you do it that way again? You know, it wants to know all this stuff. Um, you know, basically because uh, we got to back up a little bit, because what's really going on here is that God is so much bigger than any of the boxes that it's ever been taught to us to put God into, you know. And that the teachings that we've been taught about it, you know, they're true, but they're false. You know, it's just like everything else, and we'll get into that later. It is, but it isn't. You know, it's so that, and that's how deceptions work too. You know, they give you something that's true and that, you know, can be proven to you and etc. and sounds good, and, you know, it has to be at least partially correct. Otherwise, massive amounts of people wouldn't believe it, would they? You know, that's quite literally how deception works. Is they give you majority truth or a good part of truth that can be proven to you and etc. You know, and then somewhere in it, either something is excluded or twisted and tweaked a little, you know, adjusted, completely taken out, you know, and I'll do another video about that too with religions and stuff. And don't get me wrong at all, I'm not saying that they're bad. Uh, they can mislead you and etc. But they can also take you to great places, and it doesn't matter what religion you're in. Whatever gets you going to searching for Source and searching for God, and uh, you know, to be a peaceful, better person, which is the majority of what religious things try and teach people, then, you know, that's all great. That's all fantastic. But there is some misteaching in that too, and some misguiding. That kind of, like I said, it just puts God into these smaller boxes, you know, and competes with each other and fights over who's correct and who's better and who's, you know, right or wrong, and, you know, also very, very limiting, because it separates us from God. You know, like it tends to try and teach you to fear God and things of that nature, you know, and you know, God is wrathful and vengeful and all these things and whatever, you know, which is, it's really putting human concepts and aspects onto a God which you don't know and don't understand to begin with most of the time. uh, and then it takes something to get there. Uh, but if you really think about it, you know, and think about some of the other things that were taught, because there's a lot of truth to the others, like, you know, we were created in this image and etc., right? And you think about that, and you'll start to learn too about the concept of as above, so below. And so therefore, it's just how things work on the large scale also work on the small scale, and vice versa, and all things in between. It's kind of like a master blueprint for things, you know. So a lot of times, if you figure out how one thing works, you know, you can kind of morph that into this other situation and use the same concept pretty much, you know. And so, like, this thing with God is pretty much like that in some ways. And a big way that I like to put that now is, when you think about things with God, like, should I fear God? And, will God be wrathful and vengeful and wipe me all out, wipe us all out or something? There's things that happen for the reasons that we don't understand. And sometimes it takes a long amount of time for the good to come out of them, but eventually they do. And so if your perspective is you can't wait that long to see what the good is or connect the dots to see how it came out, then you might, take this cataclysm or something horrid for some super bad event, which really was necessary to bring the new good. There's lots of ways that you can look at all that stuff. And I got a little off point there, and I apologize. But, God is not in these boxes that has to compete and is separated from us and things of that nature. So if you want to think about things like that, like should I fear God and stuff, you can kind of think of like a parent, a loving parent, I should say, not just anybody. Everybody's not the greatest parent at the moment, but a loving, good parent, and when your kids do things and make mistakes and etc., and even when you get mad at them, like think about the worst thing your kid could do, right? Would you really want to kill it? I can think about what is the worst thing my son could do or my daughter could do or something or whatever, right? And there's nothing in the world, like, you might say that sometime as a figure of speech, but you don't really, I'm going to kill you, but you're not going to kill him. There's nothing that your child can do that's going to make you want to kill it, Like, at the very worst, I'm going to be like, you need to get away from me for a while, you know what I'm saying? Like, you might need to move out of my house or something, and we might need to separate with love, but, I'm never going to want to kill my child, and so it's in the same respect. Like, God doesn't want to kill you, especially because you've made some mistake or something. It's not some wrathful, vengeful God that you should be God-fearing for your life, and you better make sure you follow these lists to the T, or God's gonna get you. Like all of that. This is just a bunch of mess. It's methods of control. And in some respects, it's okay. Like there was a time where that maybe more necessary for the average person, to have extra reasons to not do horrible things that people do sometimes. But I think that time is over, especially in the case of people who can really see that there's problems with the religions that are being taught, and there's problems with society and government and etc. And we're trying to figure it out, and there's like nowhere to go for that. And sometimes, like I know in some times of my life where I'm like really trying to figure things out, this is what I was thinking is like, man, I really need to find like a religion that I can, grasp onto and find something spiritual, because what's out here physical wasn't really working so hot for me. It was, but it wasn't. In some ways it was good, in other ways I felt like I'd rather not be here, period, So, I found it hard that I never found any of those places to get me what I was looking for at all. I felt that they were just giving me more questions than anything. And if you ask some, you're not going to get very good answers that make a whole lot of sense to you. Until this awakening came to me, and I've had some experiences, and it's just been amazing and opening my eyes so much to everything and how it really works and why things really, really are the way they are, and have happened and not happened, for me and people around me and whatever. Like it opens your mind to everything, and it answers all the questions that you may have been starting to wonder if you would ever get the answers to, um, and it all makes so much sense. And you truly start to wish that you could have been taught this your whole life, and what would that have built you to? But some of the other things you learn, you don't get hung up on that stuff. Time is cyclical, not linear. Time is much different than we've been taught, and the things that we can do and experience, and the amount of years in life that we can live. uh, it's so much just opens up to you. So I want to just try to stick on the topic here instead of going off, because that kind of happens easily with this stuff. So I was just talking about really, really what's going on, and just to wrap it up here is like, you know, trying to give things a nutshell, which is really hard because this encompasses everything. It's just that, like, it's, everything is, but it isn't. It's all a matter of perspective and how you look at it. Um, and some of the biggest part of it is that God is actually within us. We are all a part of God. God, source energy, it decided that it wanted to do and experience things, and not just things, but everything. And, if you think about it, like they say God knows all and sees all, and how could that be possible? Well, that could be possible if there was a piece of God in every living thing that is obviously experiencing everything that there is to experience. Uh, so that is quite literally what's happening, and if you want to prove that to yourself, there's multiple ways we can do that, and we'll get there. Some of it is just to think about who you really are, what you really are. Are you this physical person, being, body here who is just living out your physical life, whatever it is, for this little 70, 80, 90 years you might get, and maybe sometimes you have spiritual journeys and whatever, but basically this little 3D life is just all that there is for you, and that just makes sense to you. Or do you think it's more that you're a spiritual being who happens to be here in a vehicle, manifests right now, having a physical experience, and that when this one is over, that's not it for you? You come back. You might even go elsewhere and be in another physical form that you never could have fathomed existed, and you could be experiencing that. Or you can come back here and keep, read. I always believed in reincarnation my whole life. It was just like kind of a intuitive thing. Nobody ever really taught it to me at all, or what it was really about. I knew very, very little about it. But I knew deep inside me that made sense, that reincarnation was real. And since my awakening process has been going on here, now I know it to be, and now I realize why a lot of different things in life I just intuitively felt and like kind of knew within me, even though I had never learned about them. And it's all coming together now. It's all, the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit, and it all makes sense. And and that's part of the journey, and that's that's how it keeps proving itself to you. Is you'll think about these new concepts, and you'll learn about these things that are new to you, and you'll start to see how they fit into your whole life, your whole entire life. And then if you get further into this, meditation, I've found, brings some of the most amazing things I never knew could happen, including the download, and that's truly amazing. And we'll make a whole video on that too. So meditation is a big key to all of this. If you're new and just starting, you do definitely want to learn how to meditate and put some time and energy into that. I don't know whether or not you can truly go through this process without doing the meditation, because, and this is just speaking from my experience, the meditations bring the knowledge, the wisdom, the connection, that's also a big part of what's going on. Sorry to be getting off topic of that again. Another big part of what's going on, right? Is, so we have our pieces of God that is within us. This is our soul, our consciousness, which is really what we are. Our physical body is just that. It's a vehicle. It's a temporary vehicle that we're using. Our body is our temple while we're here in this three-dimensional life, but when you wear that thing out and it's gone, you're not gone. What's really you, your soul, your being is definitely not gone. It's just your vehicle is gone. It's kind of like a hermit crab changing its shell. It's actually a pretty good metaphor for that. And maybe it'll take some time for you to believe and understand and see that, but it'll come to you. It'll come to you, and that's how you come to not being scared or worried of death. A big key of this too is like, having no fear. Fear creates anxieties, and having anxieties, it causes you to not do things that you would normally do if you didn't have those fears or anxieties, and then you would experience these better, more, exhilarating things, and you would, have a whole different life. If you could think about, how would your life be if you had always done the things that you were too scared to do, that you had these anxieties about, and so therefore shied away from people and shied away from these places that you would normally, that you might like to go, and you might always have felt like that, but then you won't, and you don't, and so then you don't meet those people, and you don't make those connections, and you don't do those things, you know what I mean? And the truth of it is, if you had, you could be an entirely different person than you are right now, And so this is part of what's going on too, is that we're realizing that we are a piece of God, and so therefore we must function and work in the same ways that God works and functions, and God is not tethered down to all this three-dimensional, really anything that you've been taught. God is limitless. God is incredible. God can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, be anywhere, do anything, and experience whatever. And yes, that includes the negative things too. Yes, that includes the terrible things too. Like that's the duality. If hot exists, so must cold. There can be no one without the other. That's just an illusion. We'll get to that. So like we're realizing this, and so we have this power within us, and therefore we truly are creators too. There is not this separation of God and human. We're connected. And so you have to start to see the connection and acknowledge it, and not only the connection between you and God, but everyone else is also a piece of God who is connected in the same way, and so therefore we are all connected, all of us, everyone. Like you think about what's the movie Avatar? Like the movie Avatar, there's so many movies, let me tell you. First of all, this is another what's going on. What's going on with all these people who are writing the best-selling books and making these, insanely well-doing videos and movies and, songs and even art and everything. The people are taking this knowledge and this understanding of what's really going on, and they're putting a creative touch on it, and making a story, and making a movie, and making a song, whatever, and becoming their highest. They're realizing their dreams. They're becoming the peak of success, and being able to live and do and be as they feel, right? You see, so you can start to see so many people, and not just people, but successful people who have obviously had these awakenings, and that's not obvious to you at all until it happens, and while you're sleeping in La La Land, you don't know where these people come up with this stuff. But my point was that Avatar is like, it's a really, really decent metaphor, because it's like, it's truly what's going on. It's how it works here, as far as we know, we're not using some machine to do it, but our consciousness is coming down into this reality, into a body, a vessel, which it takes control of. you know, and it uses it to then live in this land, this three-dimensional reality, right, which changes as well. Uh, you know, to experience things and to bring back the knowledge and etc. Right, and while we're doing that, just like in that movie, right, we're all connected, and not only to each other and not only to God, but also to the planet, right? You know, they had this thing that they could take and hook into the animal or into the flower or something or whatever. You know, okay, that was a creative spin on it. We don't physically have that anyways. You know, but it is quite literal to us. You know, we have a Merkaba, we have energy field that literally radiates out from us, you know, and that interacts with our surroundings and with the environment and with other people when we don't even know it, you know, and wait till, oh, you know, I'll make a video about that too. I had a vision of that a couple of months ago, and I could see my aura and the other person's aura, and it was just amazing, and how they interact. And you know, there's what's going on, truthfully, is that we've been taught everything upside down and backwards, and that's kept us stuck in these little boxes of really weakness when we have our true power to harness and unleash in any way we choose, really. Uh, so, you know, this stuff is all hidden in plain sight. You know, we can do that, go over symbols and things like that. People who are obviously awake, successful businesses and companies who are obviously run by awake people, you know, whether they use them with integrity or not. That again is part of the free choice that humans have, and that's why you can't predict the future. Uh, you can predict possible outcomes of the future, and you can do that educatedly based off the trends of what's happening, but you can't predict the future or when a particular thing will happen, because we all have free choice. So we'll do things in our sweet ass time, and we all affect each other. So the things that are affected by the collective consciousness decisions, you know, you can't predict any of those things. I'm feeling like I'm starting to ramble here and go into a bunch of different topics instead of just sticking on this one. So I think I'm going to end this. But I just felt that, you know, this would be a good place because we're right in the beginning of the channel here, where I'm starting to explain awakening and ascension and, you know, what happened to me and etc. So I just thought, you know, kind of a what's going on video will give you like a heads up of things to think about going forward here. Um, you know, it gives more of a direction of the things that we're going to be talking about, future videos coming up. So I'm going to just cut this one short, and hopefully I'll see you soon, and we'll start getting deep into things and put in some personal experiences to it too, because that's what's going to make my channel different from other channels that talk about these type of things, is that I'm going to put in my personal experiences with them. And, you know, I think that's a really cool thing, you know, to see another regular person go through it. You know, I'm not what you might typically think about. I'm not a Buddhist monk, you know, and I'm not like some very super religious person. I've never been very heavy on all that, you know. Any kind of typical thing you would think about with these things, you know. I never would have expected really for it to happen to me. Like, I always knew there was something, you know, I could feel it, and really it was more of, it helped to bother me and kind of depress me, because I always could feel it, and I knew that there was something more for me, and I just couldn't find it or grasp it to save my life. And you know, the acceptance of that and the giving up finally, you know, after so much try and struggle, do, breakdown, you know, I think that final breakdown and acceptance of, damn it, I can't do this alone, you know, like I thought I could, I thought I had to, I thought I had no choice, I thought And that's part of what's going on too, is everything you thought, man, just forget it. Just forget it. We have been taught almost everything backwards and upside down, with a 80%, 90% truth, but a 10% lie. It's the same. It still misleads you. It's miseducation. Uh, there's truth to things. Don't. I'm not saying school is horrible. School is great. Anything that can teach you knowledge is power, and knowledge put to use is true power, actually. So any knowledge is good. Don't get me wrong on that. But we've been taught a whole lot of things about life and how things work and how we work and how God is and everything else. It's all been upside down and backwards. That's where that saying comes from, that the devil works upside down and backwards and etc. Right? It's not actually the devil. It's man. Really, that's every man has within him, man or woman, right, the ability to be God, Christ-like, or quite devilish, right? You see. And so, like I say in one of my other videos, that it's this how we've been taught. You don't die and go to heaven or hell based on what you've done in your life and etc. No. It's after life after death is beautiful. It's loving. It's all encompassing. It's family. It's a whole nother video to talk about. Uh, the heaven and hell thing is here on earth, and which aspect or if you oscillate between the two all the time, or whatever you choose to do, is quite literal here on earth. And the God and Christ-like and Savior versus the devil thing, that is literally the struggle that goes on within your mind. We all have the ability to be the most excellent, best person we could be, just like Jesus or Buddha or anybody you could choose, or we could be the worst thing that you could possibly think of, like a Hitler or a devil, or anything, any kind of mass murderer or something, whatever you want to think about. We can be those things, and those are the struggle between us. And what do you choose? Do you serve the dark or do you serve the light? What do you oscillate between the two? What do you do? All of those things are possible. But again, just to stick to the point and wrap this video up, it's just forget the things that you've been taught, not everything. Some things you can rely on, and some things you'll find out they work here in this three-dimensional way of living. And when you try to step up to a higher plane and start doing things differently, those things don't work anymore. But they do work here, but they don't work here, right? You see? And this, again, you can start to see that's how deception works, is that, yes, this works and this is true, right, if you're living in this kind of shit land. But if you're moving on up and you're trying to live better, feel better, appreciate better, enjoy better, etc., then these things don't work anymore, and you have to learn a new way of thinking and feeling and living and believing. There's so many lessons in it. There's so many. So to just try and wrap this up in a nutshell, that's everything I just tried to touch on here is the majority of what's really going on. There's answers to everything that you could never understand and you can never figure out, because you're like, God, this place is insane. How I don't belong here, what am I doing here? And if you've been asking yourself those questions, these things are for you. This whole entire channel will be for you, and anyone else who's talking about this type of knowledge will be for you. If you're not going through your process yet, you will be, because if you are thinking that way and feeling that way, you are on your way to what's necessary, the catalyst to shoot you through, and when it starts for you, don't hesitate and don't fear, no anxiety. You just go with it. Go with the flow. Learning to go with the flow is one of the biggest lessons in this. Everything goes as an ebb and flow. It's gonna come, the tide's gonna come, and it's gonna fade, and it's gonna be positive, and it's gonna be negative. And what you're gonna be learning to do is to go ahead and sweep along with that positive wave, and when that negative one comes, you just step to the side and let it fall away, you know. And when that good positive wave comes back, you're gonna hop on and you're gonna ride that baby in. And learning to do that that's some of the true mastery that we are going to get to. So thank you for joining me again today. This was just a little video about some of the main things of what's actually going on and where we're going. So stick with me if you will. I'd love to see you again. Thank you.